Today on the Matt and Ann Show, we welcome 1981 MVP of the National Football League, Ken Anderson. Welcome to the show, Ken.
Well, thank you for having me. I really appreciate it.
We want to get right into it. Obviously, you're a former Bengal. You were there for 16 seasons. What do you think about the current product they're putting out there, and what do you think about Joe Burrows?
Well, I think Joe Burrow's the real deal. And I think, before the season, if you would have said the Bengals are going to be 7-5 after 12 games, some people may have been skeptical. They've lost a few games. That the Jets is one, that they kind of laid an egg there a little bit. But, I think over and all, it's a young football team, and I think they're progressing. I like the directions they're going. And even though they had a tough loss against San Diego, their goal of going to the playoffs is still all right in front of them.
Absolutely.
What you got on the good team right now?
What's your thought on the team? Do you like everybody they have? Do you think something's missing?
Well, I think they've still got to address the offensive line. Again, San Diego, they had two starters that were out that game, and one of them was their center, which is a tough deal. But I think I would like to see them there because otherwise, in offense, they've got a lot of weapons. Defensively, they spent some money in free agency last offseason. I think that's paying off for them. Like I said, they're still a young team. And the way that I, kind of think of it, as I hear the comments from the players, especially the veterans, talking about the camaraderie in the locker room. And I think to be a successful football team, you have to have that. And it looks like there's plenty of that in the Bengals locker room.
Are you impressed with what you saw from Jamar Chase so far? You think he's the
real
yeah.
I know I do. I think everybody got concerned in the preseason. He couldn't catch a pass. It didn't seem like. And I think somebody asked Joe Burrow before the opening game, man, I'm worried about Chase. He says, don't worry, he'll show up on Sundays. And he's really had a good season. And I know it stood out last week. He had the one that should have been a touchdown pass and bobbled it, and it turned out to be an interception by San Diego. But, he is a real threat. And I just, you look at his production so far this season.
I'm is there a player that reminds you of yourself?
Well, I think Joe Burrow and I may be similar in a certain, extent. I don't know. It's hard to compare players from different eras, but I know one thing, it would have been fun for me to play in this era where the football's kind of more wide open a little bit. I think I was mobile enough. I could have been successful, in this era. But, I think it's well documented that you can't win in the National Football League without a quarterback. And the Bengals have their quarterback.
You were a quarterback coach for years. What quarterback that you coached do you think was the best of all the guys you coached?
Well, it's pretty easy. Ben Roethlisberger. I was there. He was, let's see. I've been retired 12. So he was a lot younger, put it this way, than he is right now. And just his skills and what he brought. I think he was the best quarterback I ever coached.
What's your thoughts on him retiring? It came out a couple of days ago. He told everybody it's his last year.
Well, I think it's probably time. I think, unfortunately, Father Time is undefeated. And, I think we all get to that point. I played 16 and thought I could get to a 17, and no, it just wasn't in the cards. And so, he's had some injuries, as of late, but he's a great competitor, and the Bengals handled him pretty good, but they came back with a big win against Baltimore, last week in Pittsburgh. That one thing I know from 3 years coaching at Pittsburgh is never count out the Steelers.
Absolutely.
What do you look at for a player? Maybe a quarterback, a running back. What do you look for your team? You come
Yeah, like what attributes do you look for in a player? Like when you were coaching, what attributes did you look for?
Well, for a quarterback, one of the first things I looked at was accuracy. I looked at his throwing motion. That's something that I couldn't change. You look for athletic ability to a certain extent. I always told the guys at the combine when I interviewed them, I don't care what your drop looks like out here. As long as I think that you're athletic enough to do the things that I would like to teach you. But, I think from, throwing a football from point A to point B, you can make guys a little better, but, either you can or you can't. And, the toughest thing, for everyone is what's between a quarterback's ears. How does he process information? How does he make decisions? Those kind of things that are tough. And you try to watch as much film as you can, talk to him as much as you can. But, that's, I think, one of the reasons that some guys make it and some guys don't.
What are your memories of your 1981 MVP season and the Super Bowl run you guys had?
Well, I think that the two memories that stand out were the opening game where I was awful, threw 3 interceptions in the first quarter and got benched. And then, came back and, talked my way into starting against the Jets the next week. And we got to New York and I'm going, why did I do this? Their defensive line is the New York Sack Exchange with, Klecko and Lyons and Gastineau and Abdul Salam. I said, maybe I shouldn't be out here today. And then, normally the offensive line took a bus, one of the hotel vans to the game. And we get to Shea Stadium and there's no offensive line. And the U.S. Open tennis tournament is going on right next door to it. Well, it turns out that the van driver took him to Yankee Stadium, not Shea Stadium. We had to have the state police help him to get to the stadium. But we won that one 31-30 and we're kind of off and running. And then probably the next big memory is the Freezer Bowl, playing in the AFC Championship game against the Chargers when, with the wind chill, it was 59 below zero.
You were with the Bengals for 16 seasons. Nowadays, you really don't see that much. Big Ben stayed with the team his whole career. Tom Brady just left. Was there ever a time in your career where you thought maybe I'm going to go somewhere else, or was it always stay in Cincinnati?
Well, I think when I guess it was and this is like, maybe 82, something like that, 83. And okay. My growing up was a guy named Dan Issel, who happened to be an NBA Hall of Famer. And, he was out in Denver and Denver got a team in that league. And Red Miller, who had coached the Broncos, was the head coach. And I was on my way out to see him and I got as far as Memphis and the next flight was canceled. So I went back to Cincinnati and Paul Brown found out about it, reamed me out, and I stayed in Cincinnati.
Do you have a dream to play with a team? I know you were with the Bengals for 15 years, but do you have a dream as a kid that you wanted to go to Pittsburgh or
Philadelphia, Dallas?
Well, when I was growing up, I grew up in a small town about 40 miles west of Chicago, Batavia, Illinois. And so I was always a Bears fan. And I guess I shouldn't have done it, but I always liked Bart Starr with the Packers too. So he's kind of a Bears fan and like a quarterback, on the Packers. But those were kind of, my two teams. And then, when I was in college and I was going through the scouting process, I guess everybody thinks they're going to get drafted by Dallas because they send so much information. But, I remember, I think it was Pete Brown that saw me play for the first time. We were playing in Valparaiso, Indiana in a night game, and he had scouted Notre Dame that afternoon and came over to the game and wrote up a good report. And, Mike Brown came out and saw me play at Augustana. And in those days with the draft in January, that our coaches went out and scouted on Saturday. So I was playing against Carroll College in Waukesha, Wisconsin, and Bill Walsh was at that game and then caught a flight afterwards to Cleveland where they were playing the next day. So, it was, I was kind of the year of the quarterback when I came out. Jim Plunkett was the first pick, then Archie Manning, then Dan Pastorini, Lynn Dickey in the third round. I went in the third round. Joe Theismann was that in that draft. Scott Hunter went to the Green Bay Packers from Alabama. So it was a great quarterback year, but I think Jim Plunkett said it the best, that I was the lucky one. I got to go to a stable franchise with Paul Brown and a great offensive coach in Bill Walsh. And I think he's absolutely right.
Tell us about your college, because you didn't go to like a USC or Florida or Miami, but you still had a tremendous career. You got drafted pretty early. You got drafted, I think, 71st overall. Tell us about your college you went to.
Well, I went to Augustana College, which was a Division III school. I think about 2,500 students. It's still 2,500 students, although the price has gone up substantially since then. And, you know, a lot of kids from my town went there, and so I was familiar with it. And I thought I was a pretty good basketball player and baseball player, and so I originally went to Augustana to play basketball and baseball. And I think the letter is dated, it's up on my wall still, June 28th, where my high school coach talked me into writing a letter to the head football coach, Ralph Steranko at Augustana, and asking if I could try out. And of course, he said yes. In those days, you know, they wanted warm bodies and we're all paying customers. So, you know, they let me try out. But I think I went in the second game of the year. And after that, I became the starter as a freshman. And then the football season ended, and I was a month late for basketball. And, you know, so I started in practice uniform, but by Christmas, I was starting on the varsity as a basketball player. And then in the spring, the baseball coach said, we're hitting down in the bus barns. And I was just a little, after, you know, playing two sports and starting as a freshman, I was a little tired at that point. So I passed up baseball. And I always thought that maybe had been my best sport.
What is the best advice you got in school or maybe in
the pros?
Can you help me out with that one?
What's the best advice you got? Like whether it was high school, college, or even in the pros from coaches, players, teammates?
Well, you know, after my sophomore year in college, I'd had a pretty good year. We won the conference, and different scouts were coming around looking at me. Mm-hmm. And our head coach left, Ralph Steranko. In fact, he went from Augustana, Illinois to Augustana, Sioux Falls, South Dakota. And, you know, my high school buddy was Dan Issel, who was an All-American at the University of Kentucky, and they got a new football coach. He said, Kenny, why don't you come down here? Said, you can get a scholarship down here, because I was paying my own way at Augustana. And then my uncle had graduated from Northern Illinois, and he said, if you're thinking about leaving, he called those coaches and I could get a full ride scholarship at Northern Illinois. So I, you know, like I say, when you're, you know, every nickel you're making is going to pay for your college education, I thought that's a pretty good deal. And then an old scout from the Green Bay Packers came along and said, you know, Kenny, stay where you're at. If you're good enough, we'll find you. And so that I committed to stay at Augustana, and it turned out pretty good.
What wide receiver do you wish you got to play with and throw to?
Wow. You know, I don't know. It's because I had, you know, some great ones. Isaac Curtis, you know, came in 1973. I think he was as good as anybody in the National Football League. And I think, gosh, was it 74, 75? We traded for Charlie Joyner, who's in the NFL Hall of Fame. So I had Isaac on one side and Charlie on the other. And I don't know if I could ever come up with two better than that. And, you know, then in 1980, we got a tight end named Danny Ross, who was, you know, a great option runner. And I had Bob Trumpy, and I always say Trumpy was Gronkowski before Gronkowski. He was that 6'5" tight end that you could split out. He could run wide receiver patterns. So, you know, like I say, I had some great ones to play with, and I'd take them over anybody.
Do you have a favorite memory of a game or favorite moment that you had in your career?
Well, one of my most memorable moments was we were playing in the Freezer Bowl, and we had never seen heated benches before. You know, they brought them in for that game, and so it's in the middle of the first quarter, and I'm sitting on the bench, and they had little slots for your feet to go in. And so I put my feet in those slots. I'm sitting on my hands, and luckily I've got my helmet on, and somebody throws a cape over me, and there's a big roar in the crowd. And so I go to stand up to see if we're going back on the field with a turnover. Well, my feet don't come out. And I go down, and the first thing that hits is my face mask, and I'm seeing stars. And I call for the trainer. I said, "You've got to give me some smelling salts." I said, "I can't get knocked out of the AFC Championship game falling off the bench." Well, in today's world, with the number of cameras they have for a game like that, somebody would have caught that on film. Thinking about it, since I was seeing stars, I may have had to go into concussion protocol and not play the rest of the game.
You held completion percentage record for over 30 years. What do you think made you such a good passer to complete passes? Because nowadays you got guys that just throw far. They might not have maybe 50 to 60. They don't even come close to 70 anymore. What made you so good and so accurate?
Well, I think a lot of it was the West Coast offense, which Bill Walsh, installed in Cincinnati. And I guess I'm kind of the first quarterback that ran it, for multiple years. And, you always had somewhere to go with the football. You had your primary read, and, I would eliminate that about my second step. If that wasn't going to be now your second, your third receiver, you always had an outlet to go to. So it was, we'll take a completion, for 3 yards and move, keep ahead of the chains rather than throwing an incompletion or taking a sack. So I think, that was kind of my training. And then Bill Walsh left after the 75 season. But as I said, looking for the traits for a quarterback, I think I was a naturally accurate quarterback. And so I think that helped me out, and I could read defenses pretty good. So it helped me out a lot.
What are your memories of Bill Walsh? Obviously one of the greatest coaches of all time. He created the 49ers dynasty. What memories do you have?
Well, the draft was in January in those days. So, they drafted me in the third round, and I moved to Cincinnati the first week of February. And he kind of took me under his wing, and we worked out, just he and I. And we had a football, and we're in the locker room, and we're working on a 3-step drop. And it was, okay, rotate your foot, just walk in place. 1, 2, 3, get ready to throw, have your balance. And then we did, okay, now this is a big 3. It's going to, you have to wait for the slant. Now it's a quick 5, a 5-step drop, 5 and a hitch, 7 step. We just did that in place. And then the next week we'd kind of just walk back those. And then the third week it was trotting. So it was a month before I was doing anything full speed as far as dropbacks. But he taught me how important it was to be in balance as a quarterback, to throw and to be ready to throw on time. And I think I read it somewhere that Steve Young said, if you film me from the waist down, I can tell you if I've had a good game. And a lot of that was the training he got from Bill Walsh.
You had so many great moments, and we mentioned so many moments. But looking back on your career and looking at the quarterback now, what you thought on the quarterback that we have out now?
What's your thoughts on all the current quarterbacks?
Yeah, a great group of young quarterbacks, and I'll start with Joe Burrow because I like him, but Josh Allen, who's played against the Bengals last week, and Patrick Mahomes is unbelievable. Josh Allen in Buffalo, Tyler Murray's having a great year, Dak Prescott. So I think that the NFL is in great shape with a great crop of young quarterbacks.
Would that be, I hate to put you on the spot, but do you have a top 5 or top 10?
Well, I'm not going to, you're not going to put me on to pick a top 1 now and get everybody else to be mad at me. So I'm not going to do that. But like I say, I think there's just, a lot of good, I forgot Lamar Jackson. We'll wait and see on Daniel Jones and Zach Wilson, with the 2 New York teams. All of a sudden, Tua Tagovailoa's come back having another good year. So, and how about Mac Jones?
Yeah,
he's got the Patriots as the number 1 seed in the AFC right now. So, like I say, there's just a lot of good young players around. I think Carson Wentz is coming into his own, and he was having an MVP year when he got hurt, and Nick Foles won the Super Bowl in Philadelphia. So, but like I say, just a lot of good ones. But if I had to have one to start a franchise with right now, I like the guy in Cincinnati, Joe Burrow.
My final question for you is, Obviously, we talked about all the teams in the league. Who do you think is the Super Bowl teams this year from each conference? And who do you think will win?
Well, I don't know. I mean, it is, you look at the statistics, everybody is so close together. And, all of a sudden you thought New England was going to have another down year. And now they're the top seed in the AFC. And you can never, count out Patrick Mahomes and the Kansas City Chiefs. I think that they're really good. So, gosh, I hate to pick the Patriots, so I'll go with the Kansas City Chiefs. And then in the AFC, gosh, Tom Brady is still doing miraculous things. And, my coaching buddy and mentor, Tom Moore, is still coaching down there in Tampa. So I always got to root for them. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay and Kansas City.
And who you got taking it?
Well, Tom showed me this last Super Bowl ring was an unbelievable ring. So I want to see what comes next for them in Tampa Bay. So I'm going to go Tampa Bay.
Well, we want to thank you for coming on, Ken. It's a complete honor. Let's get this man in the Hall of Fame. He absolutely deserves it. Where can people find you, and you want to advertise anything you got going on right now?
You can get me on Twitter at Ken Anderson NFL. We wish you would go to my foundation website, kenandersonalliance.org. We're doing some amazing things, creating live, work, and engage opportunities for adults with disabilities. So I'm very proud of what we've got going on there. And, we've got a coffee shop we just opened up that employs 4 adults, Just Brew Coffee. We're opening up 3 more. We've got about 100 in our daycare service, and we service over 200 a month that go out in small groups, whether it's to dinner, a ball game, volunteering at another nonprofit. And we're breaking ground first of the year on a community that will house about adults with disabilities.
That's absolutely awesome.
I want to get you so much for doing what you're doing. I don't know how you, I don't want to speak for everybody, but thank you for everything you're doing for the disability community. And keep it up, and we really appreciate you having on the show. Have a great night.
Couldn't have said it better myself. Thank you so much. We greatly appreciate it.
Well, can we do this again, guys?
Absolutely, absolutely.
I'm all in.
Thank you so much, Ken. Have a great dinner.
Thank you, guys.